On to the Toffee Blue, Joe Source for all things Everton, and welcome to the post-match Keep, Sell and Loan show, where we are discussing what the future should hold for the members of the current Everton squad. I'm joined by Terry, Paul and Owen. We're going to all weigh in our opinions on every member of the Everton squad from this season and what should happen to them beyond this summer. We're going to go through it in order of sort of position. So we'll go from back to front, starting with the keepers. And everyone will give their take on the players. So we'll start out with the keepers. And like I say, we'll start with number one, Jordan Pickford. He's been one of the best performers this season. So it's very hard to find the case to sell him. But the only potential reason behind him maybe being sold as would we be cashing in on someone who's stocked very high, and considering the financial side of things with Everton at the moment, do we need to cash in if someone came in with an offer we couldn't refuse? We'll go with you first, Owen.
Look, this for me, in an ordinary summer where we'd look at it and think we haven't just finished 16th and we haven't just, look to be in a position where we need to do a lot to improve the squad, you'd say, do you know what, if with normal times, we're just free in, free out. If a big offer came in, you'd wheel and deal and you can bounce the books, then you'd say maybe, but I just think there's that much to do this summer that keeping as much stability, well, not as much because you do want it, but keeping what you can, you should. And I think Jordan Pickford, I wouldn't entertain unless it was 4 billion quid. Then I don't think I would necessarily consider selling Jordan Pickford myself. I would keep.
Yeah. What about you guys, Terry?
Yeah, I think what Owen says is right. That I think everyone's for sale, considering the financial position the club are in or have allowed themselves to get in with regulation. And the fact is, the players who are going to, bring in the most money to have fixed out are the better players. So anyone can go, but if we're in a perfect world scenario, then Jordan Pickford's not one you want to sell. He's, despite I've not always been the biggest Jordan Pickford fan, but last season and a half, 2 seasons, he's been outstanding. And let's have it right, he kept us in the Premier League this season. So I don't see there really being a market for him anyway, or like a likely buyer. But he's one of the pillars of the team who you wouldn't be wanting to sell him unless a really, really lucrative offer came in. So he's a keep.
Paul?
Yeah, Pickford's a keep. As both the boys said, Terry mentioned how he was basically so vital to us staying up, which he was. He won us points on his own with some of the saves he pulled off, and the fact that there's other positions that need to be sorted out long before goalkeeper, then he's a keep. But one of the other reasons for me that I definitely wouldn't look to sell him, or I wouldn't entertain selling him, as Owen says, unless it was for an absolutely eye-watering offer, is because I just think if he did leave, he's one of those players where it would really deflate the fan base to see him go. It would have kind of that Lukaku effect where everyone kind of just thinks, oh, what are we going to do now type of thing, which wasn't always the case because he's had bad runs of form in the past and a lot of fans are happy to see the back of him. But if we lose him now, I just think a lot of fans will just look back at this summer, regardless of what else happens. People will just look back on this summer as really, really depressing because we lost one of the most important players in the team. If we lose Richarlison, who's equally other people would be devastated about. I think people are slowly coming to terms with the fact that Richarlison probably won't be at Everton for much longer and would maybe be able to swallow it a bit easier because he deserves a big move and he's given us everything, and he's at the point in his career now where he's still quite young and we'll get a lot of money for him. But with Pickford, I just kind of think, other than the money coming in, fans just won't be able to get over it as easily. It'll just be really, really depressing, and people will just think we've lost one of the players who we loved the most and was too critical to our team. So yeah, he's a key Pickford, even though I do think losing him, there are other keepers around Europe who would come in, I think, and do a job for us. But I just think the emotional side of it's too heavy, losing Pickford.
Fair play. I think I'll make that a clean sweep anyway. I'm going to say keep Jordan Pickford. A while back, I did say that I consider selling him, but I think that was before the run in this season where he really has pulled us over the line. I think at times, like you said there, Paul, and the financial side is obviously important, but it's a position where I think, as you said there, I think he picked us up about, must have gained us an extra like 10 points this season with some of his saves. So I'm going to say keep as well. So it's a clean sweep for Jordan Pickford. Unanimous decision to keep Pickford. As for the other goalkeepers at the club, you know, we've got Asmir Begovic and Andy Lonergan. What's your take on those two? Keep one, sell one, keep both, sell both. We'll start with Owen on this one. Owen, what's your take on Begovic and Lonergan?
I think Andy Lonergan was sort of came in as sort of, I don't know, this isn't definite, but I don't know if he was some sort of friend with the goalkeeping coach or something like that. So I don't know if he came in to help that side out of it. So his decision, I don't know, but I'll probably keep Begovic. I mean, again, it's a case of what mythical number two are you going to get these days that's going to really pull up many trees. Jordan Pickford plays every game. Begovic is a decent sort of. He did well when he played against Newcastle, of course, but he made a few good saves that night. He's been around the Premier League. He's experienced. Wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry if he dropped in there again. It's changes for change's sake at this point. We're changing him. I'm not really too bothered either way. He could be there. I quite like when we had Robin Olsen the other year. I thought he was a decent number two, but we didn't choose to keep him. We got Begovic. But to be honest, unless he was playing 30 games next season, that might be an issue. But if he's just playing one or two at the most, and he's an experienced goalkeeper around the Premier League, I wouldn't be looking to move him. I'd probably give him another year.
Sorry?
Again, in a strictly hypothetical scenario, obviously it's not going to happen, but I'd get rid of both. Like, let's Begovic is crap. Like, he's just absolutely crappy. Every shot goes through him. I know that he might have some, training ground, dressing room, like positive influence, but for me, the number two goalkeeper now, in this day and age, I'd like that if that was one of the positions where young players got a spot, because obviously we've got a first choice goalkeeper going to play most games, and then you've got players late into the 30s, second choice goalkeepers. I'd rather have Billy Crellin or like Harry Tyra on the bench, and then okay, maybe if you had a number two who was young, maybe the number three could be an Andy Lonergan type, and just an emergency 40-year-old who, if anything, if Jordan Pickford was to get a big injury,
Alan Neville Southall at Bradford.
Yeah, just one of them, like emergency, like third choice. But I don't see any harm in it. But for me, in this sort of playing football manager type thing, Begovic and Lonergan, or at least Begovic, would be out the door, and you could, or one of them, and then the old player could be number three in an emergency, and you could have a young player like Billy Crellin as the second choice. Because how is a goalkeeper meant to progress if he's fourth choice at a club?
Exactly. It's a really good, really well made point there, because I've thought this myself, is that I can't remember the last time a keeper came through our ranks and appeared. I don't think we've actually had one in my lifetime. I don't know if you guys can correct me on that, but
not to play for Everton, but John Ruddy had a career, and he didn't come through our academy. We bought him. Can't remember who from.
But we Cambridge.
Oh yeah, as like an embryo, we bought him, and he's obviously gone on to have a career. But other than that, it's just always been first choice, acquisition goalkeeper, which is fine. But as I say, I would like the number two to be a young player and just have an old head as a number three. But I say
again, but you speak about Ruddy there, and he was another example of what you're saying with Tyra, where Ruddy was set to be the number two, and then for some reason he brought Carlo Nash in and then sold him. I
think I don't blame managers for doing it. I think it's just a security thing. Like, they don't, Like it's easy for me to sit here and say I'm a 21-year-old on the bench goalkeeper, because then if it comes to it, these are big important games, a lot of money and jobs on the line. So the managers must think I'm not leaving it in the hands of kids. If I get a goalkeeper injury, I'm going to have it someone who's seen and done it all. But Begovic's seen and done it all and hasn't saved any of it. So
that's harsh. He's been a good goalie in his career.
Yeah, shame he isn't now.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's not high priority, as I say. But in this scenario, I just get it.
Your take, Paul?
For me, it's going to have to be a keep because, as Terry said, what number 2 are we going to go out and find who is significantly better than him? Who's going to come in and be happy to just be Jordan Pickford's understudy? If we get rid of him, we're probably just going to have to go for some other passive keeper, aren't we? Or go for a very young keeper who is probably not ready to be dropped in, even for a game or two here or there. But so it's going to have to be a keep. But I definitely agree with Terry. He played about 6 or 7 games for us last season, didn't he? Begovic, he played both the cup competitions in the early rounds, and he dropped in for a few Premier League games as well. And other than that one against Newcastle, which was a big win, don't get me wrong, and he played a part that night. But I remember the games in the cup against, I think it was Huddersfield, where we sneaked through. Then the penalty shootout against QPR, where he didn't get near a 6, or we put, I think, 11 penalties past them, something like that. Not QPR. QPR put like 8 or 9 penalties past them. And even in the pre-season prior to that, in the little shootout we had in Florida, I think he only saved 1 out of like 11 penalties there. So for me, I don't particularly rate him, and I don't want to see him at the club any more than next season at the most. I just might have been a good goalkeeper once, as Owen said, but for me, he's not good enough. If he came into the Everton team and had a long stretch of the Everton team, I wouldn't be confident, and I really hope we don't see much of him in the cups. I know second choice goalkeepers usually have some sort of clause in the contract where they've got to be guaranteed that they're going to play in the early cup rounds, but I don't like that myself. I've never been a fan of playing your second choice in cups, and if Everton had a cup run and got to a quarter-final or a semi-final or even further than that, Begovic was the goalkeeper we were using, I wouldn't be confident of us winning a cup at all if Begovic was the person in goal. No, so it's going to have to be a keep, because what's the realistic alternative this summer? But long term, I think Begovic has not got anything to offer Everton, really.
And also a good point that Owen made as well. There's we're going to hope as fans for a lot of upheaval, and that's one of the positions I think that needs the least upheaval. Yeah.
There's definitely merits to keeping them, but to me, they're not quite as convincing as they were maybe a year ago. Because when we brought him in last summer to be our number 2, I was quite pleased with that. I was gutted that we lost Olsen, because I was a fan of Olsen, like Owen. I thought he got a bit too much criticism from some fans. I thought he was mostly really solid. But I was happy with Begovic coming in. He was coming off a really strong season with Bournemouth in the Championship. I think he got in the team of the year. And I thought, he's played a lot of football over the last few years. He played 40-plus games in the Championship. He played for Bournemouth in the last 2 seasons they were in the Premier League. So it's not like he's a goalkeeper who's not done anything for the last 4 or 5 years. He's just been sitting around. He has been active. This will be probably the first club he's been to in a long time where he'll have to be a number 2. But he's a professional. He's been at big clubs like Chelsea and AC Milan. I think he had a spell out there. So he'll come in and he'll offer something. But anytime we used him, other than that Newcastle game, it didn't impress me at all. So we're going to have to keep him this summer, as you said. It's just a place we can't be messing around with. But if Jordan Pickford's were to leave Everton, then I definitely don't want to see Asmir Begovic as any sort of number 1 for Everton, even on a short-term basis.
Definitely, I think we're all agreed, well, with the exception of Terry, I think, on Begovic. Terry said sell. I think the other 3 of us have said keep him. So in terms of the goalkeepers, it looks as though it's the status quo, I think, for next season.
We haven't mentioned, just before we go on to this, because I don't want to drag this out too long, because we've got a lot to get through, but what about João Virginia? Because he's going to come back to the club. There's rumours that Sporting Lisbon want to keep him. He did look like he had something about him, though, in that little spell he came into the team in that season under Carlo. So would you definitely sell him, or would you bring him back and let him be maybe the number 2, as Terry said, a younger goalkeeper?
No, I wasn't sure on him, to be honest. I thought he was...
Sell him.
Yeah, I think
If
if
we
you make
can
a
make
few
some
quid on it,
cash on that, sell him.
yeah, I wasn't too sure, to be honest.
Yeah,
You,
he'll
Terry,
be,
do you want to see him come back and be the number 2, or would you just sell him?
no, he'll go and be a keeper somewhere, but he's not a Premier League keeper, not yet anyway. So get some money for him. We need money, and someone will buy him, and that'll go into the coffers, no matter how small.
We'll probably give him a 5-year deal. So.
I mean, I wouldn't be against. I'm probably in the minority here. I wouldn't be against him coming back and being the number 2 for the season and see how he gets on and move Begovic on. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they are going to do what you boys are saying.
I wouldn't lose any sleep. Like I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to be gained bringing him back and letting him be the number 2, because he was always the number 3 before that, wasn't he? I think there's more to gain bringing him back as the confirmed number 2 than just making do with Begovic. But maybe I'm just in the minority.
They're all better than Stecklenberg, so whatever we choose.
I think the general consensus here is to keep the 3 goalkeepers that we've currently got at Everton anyway for next season. Long term, I do think there needs to be more of a strategy in terms of probably Begovic should go next summer, and somebody needs to come in, but that's something for next summer. As far as this summer's concerned, let's just keep it as it is between the sticks. But onto the defenders, we'll go with centre backs first, and at the time of us recording this, it's looking likely that James Tarkowski might be coming in to bolster the centre back ranks. With that in mind, it's likely that somebody is going to leave out of this season, centre backs. We'll start with the fella who tread the very same path as Tarkowski, coming from Burnley, and that was Michael Keane. Very up and down this season to the extreme. We'll start with you, Owen. Which of the 4 defenders would you consider selling now Tarkowski's coming in?
Well, if I'm being honest, there's a world where I'd consider selling them all, but you can't do that, can you? We've got to. I would say we've got to. If Tarkowski comes in, one's probably going to leave. It would probably be Mina, to be honest, because of his. Well, and Michael Keane. Look, if Michael Keane left this summer for some money, I'd be happy. Not only for us, but for him, because he's been through a rough ride the last few years. You can see mental health and that kind of stuff. So I think he needs to get away from whatever Everton is. But realistically, I mean, I probably would be more inclined to sell, but I can see a situation where he stays. I think, yeah. If we could bring 2 in, I'd get rid of him. But if we can only bring 1 in, I think we've got to cash in on Mina, because I think he's what people view as the best centre back, and you can get a few quid for him. He never plays, etc. Then if Michael Keane's your fair choice centre back, and you play a certain way, then he isn't that bad. It's just when you're swapping and changing partners and start lie where your defence is, and now that's where he struggles. So I'm a mixed bag with him, to be honest.
Terry, you got any more defined decision on Michael Keane?
Yeah, sell him. He's an absolute crab. He had 1 good season his entire Everton career under Carlo Ancelotti, who made loads of players who were crap look good. And he was on a 1-man mission last season to see us relegated. He was kicking fresh air against Man City, which led to their goal, and he moved on to putting own goals in the top corner for Tottenham. He's an absolute bag of nerves, waste of space. Get rid of him. He's absolutely crap. All the defenders, a case could be made for getting rid of them, and the strongest case probably is, as Owen says, Yerry Mina. He's the best centre back, but he never plays, so it's immaterial. But Michael Keane, don't think he's going anywhere. He's on a long contract. He's on a big wage. And he's one of the very few Everton players who doesn't get injured a lot. So he's not going anywhere. But in my perfect world...
Yeah, I would sell him, but...
He's crap. I've never seen a player who can't play in front of a crowd. I swear to God, he just falls apart under any pressure. So go and let him play at some lower league club where he'll look the boss and there'll be no pressure on him. and then he can, see out the rest of his career like that. Because in the Premier League, where the games matter, you can't. So no, it's a complete no for me. I thought he was being the mastermind behind Everton's relegation last year. He certainly looked like he was on a mission to do that, and I haven't forgot because of one goal in a Crystal Palace game. So no, see you later, Michael.
Well, Paul, your take on Michael Keane?
I can only echo Terry's thoughts. I'm exhausted by the fella, and for me, I'd sell him over Mina. For me, he's the first central defender out the door. If we can, I'd rather have Mina for 15 games a season than have Keane fit for 30. Keane, he's a liability. He made the most depressing defeat of last season for me was probably Norwich away, Benitez's final game. That's the lowest I sunk. And that game, he made Norwich's forwards, players who couldn't hit a barn door, he made them look like the old BBC at Real Madrid. Bale, Benzema, Cristiano. Honestly, no. First out the door, I agree with Terry completely. He's no use. And we're going to be playing a free at the back as well, under Frank, it looks like. And every time we've tried that with Keane in there, he's looked absolutely at odds. He's hopeless. He's barely. His good performances are in the minority nowadays when he's playing in a traditional four at the back. So when he plays a free at the back, he's even worse. So no, for me, he's the first defender out the door. I'd sell him before I'd sell anyone else.
Yeah, that's a good point that you've made. There's obviously the possibility of having Mina. Mina is the best defender, but the least reliable in terms of fitness. But if we were to bring in Tarkowski, would you consider Mina maybe as Mina could probably be more of a bench player, but his contract's up. So it's either you offer him a lower contract or you cash in.
He's not going to take a lower contract, Mina, and whether he's a bench player or he's a starter, it's not going to affect his fitness. That he's just one of these players where unless he's 95% fit or over that, if he's any less than 95%, he's usually just makes himself unavailable. So even if he's on the bench, if he's not playing as many games as we would want him to, I don't think that's going to make his injuries any less than what they are. I categorically think, and I'll put my neck on the line with this, I think Yerry Mina would win us more points over the season if he played a dozen games than Michael Keane would if he played 30 plus. I can't stomach Michael Keane anymore.
In the real world, Keane's going nowhere and Mina will probably go because of the injury record. It just makes it a non-starter to do it the other way around, despite how much better he is as a player. But you watch, Yerry Mina will be sold for about 5 million and he'll go to a hot weather league and play 40 games. You watch. Just Everton's.
He'll go to some lower bottom half Spanish team like Elche or Toffee or someone and do it.
And never miss a game. He'll never get an injury again because he's playing somewhere else. It's just the way it is. Accept it. And Michael Keane will still be here, back heeling into his own goal.
I don't think when Mina inevitably goes, he's going to go to some no-mark club in a league that no one cares about. He's getting linked with Marseille, isn't he? I think that's where he'll end up. He'll end up in a nice part of the world playing for a club that probably isn't like a top level, a super club, a team that is going to be challenging for the Champions League. But he'll be playing in a club that is very arguably a step up from Everton, at least perception-wise, around Europe. And as Terry said, he'll probably put his injuries behind him when he's playing in a slower league with a team that it doesn't play as physical a style as we usually do. So, yeah, I just going back to Michael Keane, I think he's got absolutely no place at Everton and he's got no business playing in the Premier League, quite frankly. Maybe Owen probably disagrees with that, but I'm sorry, I'm just exhausted by the fella. So, should we go on to the other defenders now?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Just before you do, you've just told me that you've never been to Marseille. nice part of the world. It's rough as fuck.
Well, I've never been. I've refused. I've only been to France a couple of times, and what I think both times with you. Once to Disneyland Paris when we were little, and once to Lille, and I refuse to ever go back for any reason. We'll never set foot in France as long as I live. Especially after what's just happened in that final. I'd refuse to go in that country.
I mean, it's one of them, the two parallels between Lille away and Disneyland Paris. You get tasered by police.
Yeah,
getting tasered by Mickey Mouse.
Depends what you get up to at Disneyland if you get tasered. But put it this way, it's Disneyland Paris is better than Marseille. Marseille's not. It's not one of the more like welcoming parts of the world, it's quite rough.
We'll wrap up there anyway. It looks as though like Yerry Mina is going to go regardless. It's saying in a lot of these reports, obviously with Tarkowski looking like a done deal, that
he's being offered around. I think that's where all these links are coming from. We're letting it be known that we'll let him go if someone comes in with an half decent bid. So I think we're trying to drum up interest in him, which makes me think that he's definitely going to go. And I've got no problem with him going. As we've said, he's just not reliable enough. But I still think he's got, even when he plays hardly any games, he's still by far and away more of a contributor to the team than certain other defenders are that we've got. But it looks like he's going to go, and I'm fine with that. So it's a sell from me.
Yeah. So on that note, I think I'm going to also say I'd say sell Yerry Mina, but I would actually go on record to say also sell Michael Keane and bring in another defender, even if it's not an expensive one. He's not even doesn't have to be amazing.
I'd sell him,
Yerry
Mina, Michael Keane, and Mason Holgate ideally. And I'd want to bring in another defender as well. I agree with you. The only central defender we've got who I think definitely do not sell is Ben Godfrey. But...
And even then, I think Ben Godfrey's not been at the same level this season for obvious reasons. I think we need a bit of a safety net in that respect as well. I think Godfrey should probably be the sort of third choice who can fill in for the main pairing. I don't really want that to be, if it's Tarkowski, I don't want it to be really Holgate. Again, like I think Holgate in my eyes should be like, I keep Holgate as a fourth choice. And Godfrey as a third, but I would be looking for another centre-back to partner Tarkowski, a better, more stable centre-back. I don't know what what your take is on that.
I think Godfrey will be part of any defence going forwards. I think he's had his wobbly second season, and I think he's got to, he's got some improvements he can make. But he's got all the physical tools. He's got blister and pace. He's strong in a tackle. His positioning's not great, but maybe with a leader centre back next to him, that'll help him out. I personally think we're going to play three centre backs, and I think Godfrey will figure into that. So it'll be Tarkowski, Godfrey, and another. Whether that's Holgate, whether that's Seamus Coleman, whether that's another player we bring in who's left-footed, who knows? But I think Godfrey, he's a definite keep from me. But I must stress that a keep is not an endorsement of I think this player is amazing. It's just a keep. I see something there. So Godfrey's a keep from me.
It's a keep in the respect of, as we said before we did this show, you can't sell everyone.
Even if I could, I wouldn't sell Godfrey. I still think there's a player there. I just think he was brought in, he played left back in Carlo's system in a lower block, and it allows him to thrive. But then as a centre back, he's still, he's got some work to do, but I think he can get better. And I think in a three, with his pace, he'll be perfect alongside the Tarkowski and, hopefully someone else.
It's definitely too early to give up on Godfrey. I agree.
Oh, easily.
What about you, Owen, mate?
Yeah, I'll definitely keep Godfrey. I don't know, have we mentioned Mason Holgate here?
We have
a little
briefly.
Bit. I'm not a fan. I mean, if we keep him, I understand why, but in an ideal world, I'd like to see him go as well.
If this is my unpopular opinion, and I suppose I think this will get some pushback, but I would rather sell Holgate than Michael Keane, and that's my opinion.
I'd say I'm the
Holgate's
complete opposite of that.
I think he's rubbish, Mason. I don't see any strength.
I think
like Michael
him.
Keane, you can get a good run of him. I don't think you can get any. I think Holgate's really bad, and I think he's just been going on this cycle even longer than Michael Keane has, and I've cut ties. I respect him for turning up for the last month of last season, but I thought he was dreadful for the rest of it, and he was dreadful the season before that as well. So if it's supposed to be a meritocracy here, then Michael Keane was better the season before than Holgate. So I don't know. I'd sell, if we could sell three of them and bring in another three, but we can't do that. I don't know. I don't know. There's been Brighton been linked with Holgate in the past and that. I just think I would be interested to see if we can get an offer from Mason Holgate this summer, because I just think people, it's recency bias, isn't it? Because he had a good last month, keep him and give him a chance. But I think he does this a lot, and I if we could get 10 to 12 million for Mason Holgate, then the situation we're in, I'm not turning my nose up at that for Mason Holgate.
So in terms of the centre backs, then we'll go through them all one by one. Keep, sell, or loan. Michael Keane, Terry. Keep, sell, or loan. Sell. Paul.
Throw out the door. Sell.
Owen.
Are we doing this pragmatically or hypothetically?
Let's say
yes or
pragmatic.
just yes or no. What's your gut feeling?
Oh, sell, but pragmatically keep.
Okay.
So sell. Well, let's have a bit of fun. I'm not making a decision.
Let's say I'll say let's pragmatically have David Moyes' pants down and sell him to West Ham, because he's been linked with West Ham, hasn't he?
Pragmatically get David Moyes back. I was excited.
Keane had 2 bits on the Moyes, I reckon.
No, David Moyes wouldn't let him park his car, mate. Honestly. But yeah, Keane, we're all in agreement on, even if it would be pragmatic or not being pragmatic. Holgate, for me, it's a sell.
Terry, what's your take on Holgate?
I'd happily sell, because I agree with the lads, he's not good enough. But pragmatically, I keep, because if we're going to play a back three, the only time Holgate's ever looked any good in a back three.
Good point, Owen. Holgate, keep.
He'd be out tomorrow morning. He's shite. He's not a defender. He needs to find out where he is, but he's not. I'd rather keep Michael Keane and Mason Holgate myself, but
So it's very mixed on Holgate and Keane. Like, we both, I think in a perfect world would be selling both of them, but Keane is probably going to go, so one of them two is going to have to stay. Owen, I reckon Owen's prefer to keep Keane. I think the other three of us would probably prefer to keep Holgate.
The only way I think keeping Holgate might make a bit more sense is because he can he can shuffle across the fullback as well and do a terrible job there as well. So I mean, he just expands his terribleness. He's been terrible in midfield as well.
No, but he doesn't
have
have
number 2 goalie. Never have to.
He doesn't have war. Holgate does. I don't like Holgate, but he doesn't have war flashbacks in the middle of the game like the other fella.
Oh, I can imagine Michael Keane now on like that character in Airplane where he's just having like flashbacks. So it was like the guilt of the war, and he's telling everyone, and they're all setting themselves on fire on the plane.
No, that's quite funny, and there's nothing. I won't smile at all when it comes to Michael Keane. I think he's an embarrassment, and he needs to be out the door. Ben Godfrey, for me, it's 100% keep, even if he's got a lot of flaws. I think he's not worth giving up on yet. So I'd 100% keep Godfrey.
I think we're unanimous here. There's 4 of us here, I think, on keeping Ben Godfrey.
There's something to work with there, isn't there?
He's the youngest, isn't he?
Yeah.
Keep.
And then finally, I think we did forget to mention Jared Brantwaite, who came in for a fleeting visit against Brentford and got sent off. But he did get that goal with Chelsea. He's been all right.
Keep. Whether he goes out on loan, I think that would be ideal. But if we are going to sell both the other 2 centre backs that we don't want, then we're probably going to have to keep him around just as a squad option, as cover. But whether he stays and he's 4th choice or whether he goes out on loan, I definitely wouldn't be looking to sell him. I don't personally buy into these rumours that Man City have scouted him and they're interested, because he hasn't played a lot of first team football. I can't imagine any big super clubs like your Man Cities or your Man Uniteds or maybe a club abroad has seen much of Jared Brantwaite and decided they're just going to throw 20 million at us for him. I don't think we'll get any offers for a permanent buy for Jared Brantwaite, but even if we did, unless it was just a really, really silly offer, Jared Brantwaite's a definite keep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's keep up with if the right club came in, would you loan him?
Yeah, it would, but only if it suits us. Sorry, go on. Owen and Terry.
Yeah, I'd loan him. I don't think he's quite ready yet to be playing a lot of games. I think he looked quite naive at times when he played at times last season. I'd give him another loan. I was disappointed he didn't get more of a starting place when he went to Blackburn a few years ago. That they normally do quite well. I don't think he played that much. I might be wrong, but
He started well at Blackburn, but then kind of fell off. I think he had a couple of wobbly games, and Tony Mowbray just lost faith in him.
Yeah. I'd send him somewhere where he'd probably play because they haven't got many centre backs or whatever, and see how he does. I wouldn't, if he's around the squad, I wouldn't be too bothered because I don't think he's embarrassed himself. But I just think I need to see him in a full championship season. I'd like that to happen. He never picked the right loans. I think that's our problem. We end up
Gordon to Preston didn't do many favours.
And he was going to go there because Alex Neil was going to play him, and then they changed manager. Still haven't worked out why, by the way, but they changed manager, and he never really got a look in after that. So it's difficult. You've got to choose your loans, right? And it's difficult because they're clubs and they've got expectations and they've got to win as well. So we think every club's some sort of project club for us, but it doesn't work like that. They're next on the block as well, and they've got to win. So we've got to get them and move the track for them. But if we can, I would loan Jared Branthwaite because I think he could do with it.
So loan Branthwaite out, but yeah, there's a lot of shuffling around to be done. I think with defenders, whether it's this summer or next summer, Tarkowski hopefully is the start of us improving that position because
delighted.
We need to be more solid. And
in
fairness, Lampard said it.
Yeah, definitely. But he will be loaned. That I'm sure. I wouldn't be surprised if he was loaned to Scotland, because he's from Carlisle, so it'll be closer to home, and Rangers or Celtic or whatever. But I personally would keep him and play him. I really, really rate Branthwaite. I know he's naive and he's got mistakes in him, but in a back three, if we're going to play a back three, and
he's a left footer, so he'd put him on the left, did he?
Yeah, well, yeah, either or. I would play him in a back three. I would start him because I do think there's a quality player in there, and in a back three, he won't be as exposed as he would be in like a pair. So Tarkowski, Godfrey, and Branthwaite. Okay, that's very young, apart from Tarkowski, but that's what you're bringing in Tarkowski for, to sort of help organise the young players, because we're going to have a young left back and a young right back, and wing backs or whatever. But I genuinely, if I had my way in a back three, I'd be playing Branthwaite. I'd keep him and play him. I'd have him ahead of Holgate and ahead of Keane. That's the way I see it. And obviously, we don't know who else is going to come in. That might change things. We get another centre back in, he'll definitely go out on loan, just because of the realities of we're not going to sell Holgate and Keane together. But as I say, in this football manager perfect world, Keane and Holgate to be out the door, and Branthwaite would be part of my team. I really rate Branthwaite.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be against that, but I do think I would like to see both Keane and Mina go. Another more experienced defender come in, and have Tarkowski along with him, and if it's a three, one of the younger lads. But there's a lot of different choices. We also were doing this hypothetically on. We don't know whether it's going to be a back three or a back two next season.
If it's a flat back four, then Branthwaite is likely going to, he'd go out the door and he'd be better served by playing out on loan and coming back. But for me, I think the best way to use and utilise a lot of our players, to be honest, including the fullbacks, which we'll come on to next, would be a back three with wing backs. And I think Branthwaite fits into that. Obviously, Mina and Keane in this scenario would go. Holgate, I'd like to go, but I think if you're playing a back three, you need to keep one of them, and Holgate's better in a back three than Keane. So it'd be him, but I just like Branthwaite. I would play Branthwaite with Godfrey and Tarkowski.
Yeah. So on that anyway, we'll move on to the fullbacks.
Let's just clear up very quickly. Patterson and Michaelenko, both solid keeps.
Yeah. Absolutely. Only been here 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Foolish to do anything there. Obviously, that only really leaves us. You mentioned Neil Nkunku. What would you do with him?
Keep
keep him around, give him a chance, see if he can do anything.
Obviously, in this hypothetical, I'm going to be playing a back three with wing backs, and I think that's ideal for him. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not a great player. He's not like he's, got to keep hold of him. He's a star in the making, but he's really good going forward. And I think as a wing back, he'd be far more comfortable than when we played him in a flat back four, because we played him against lower league opposition and he ran the show. Played him against West Ham and he really struggled against Yarmolenko. Neil Nkunku, naturally left-footed, got pace, good going forward. I'm sure in a back five with some leadership at centre-back from, I'm asking a lot of James Tarkowski here, I know, but I think that'd be a good position for him. And then maybe down the line, you could, next summer, the following summer, you could go, right, we need new, left wing back cover. But I would keep him. But he's likely to be loaned or sold, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I would also keep Neil Nkunku, and then if you say, like you say, I agree completely with you there. If it's a back three and he's a wing back, then that's perfect for his development, I think, to help him settle into this league.
I think the same applies for Patterson. Obviously, we've bought him on the strength of his Scotland games, and he's looked really good in those, and he's looks really good going forward. But he's making a big step from the Scottish League to the Premier League. So, in a flat back four, it's going to be, a big ask for him. And I think, as a wing back with either a Godfrey or maybe even a Seamus Coleman, we didn't even touch on him, or we haven't yet. Anyway, Seamus Coleman as an inside. Yeah, well, Seamus Coleman in the part of a back three on that side could be wonderful for Patterson. But Patterson and Nkunku are both in similar boats in a thing. I think not in terms of status at the club, but they would benefit from playing wing backs to settle into the league, because it gives them slightly less responsibility defensively and lets their strength forwards, accentuates their strength.
Certainly, and that brings us on, like you just said there, Seamus Coleman's the last of the defenders. Is his future now like a back three, like maybe on the right of a back three?
For me, yeah.
I think he is finished as an out and out full back.
Yeah, well, obviously, if we're playing a back three, the right wing back cover won't be Coleman. It'll be Iwobi, because that's where he seems to like him. But so it'll be Patterson and Iwobi, and Coleman would be part of your back three makeup. So that's why he's sort of an auxiliary centre back, and I think that's perfect for him. I think we'll miss Coleman when he's gone. He's a great captain, and you only need to see from the footage of the tunnel access video after the Palace game that, all right, his legs have gone. He's not the player he used to be. He used to be one of the best attacking fullbacks in Europe. The club's done him a bit of a disservice in recent years by not replacing him at the appropriate time, like they did with Tim Howard, and letting people's memories be tarnished of him by not moving him on at the right time, or moving him out, in Coleman's case, moving him out of the starting 11. But I think he's a very influential player. He's not past the problem at the club. He's past the solution, but there's not enough of him. And now I think if you move him out of the team, that's fine. But if you are going to use him, it can't be as an orthodox right back. He hasn't got the legs to go forwards anymore, and he gets exposed at times. He was another one with a spell of games like Michael Keane. But I don't think it was his mentality that was the problem. It was his physicality. He's got too old. But in the back three, I think he's perfectly fine as an option.
I think that's the only option for me as far as Coleman's concerned.
For me, it's not an option.
Go on.
For me, it's not an option. I'm not impressed by him when I see him as a right-sided centre back in a free. I don't think he's strong enough. Don't think he's not quick enough. Don't think he reads the game well enough. Don't think he's got the pace anymore, which was always his big. He doesn't have the distribution, does he? He can't link up with the midfielders, bring the ball out if he has to. Now, for me, Seamus Coleman's a dog that needs putting down. I get all of this stuff that he's a good guy and Frank likes him and they want to have him around because he probably is worth his weight in goals off the pitch. But for me, it's just a case of what we're always chastising the club for, keeping people around when they've outlived their usefulness as players. And we need to start getting more players into the team, into the squad who can actually go on the pitch and significantly help us. They can go on the pitch and make a positive difference. And I think the days of Coleman doing that a lot are gone. Honestly, I wouldn't even keep him around.
I'll be honest, if the club really knew what they were doing, they'd probably like
the club. Yeah, if the club really knew what they were doing, they wouldn't even be keeping him around as this right-sided centre back. And I disagree with Terry. I don't even rate him doing that, to be honest with you. For me, Seamus Coleman, it's not a sell because we're not going to sell him at his age. But I would really like it if Coleman decided to retire, step back. He's not going to do that, and I understand if he doesn't, because they'll probably, even if he wants to do that, they'll probably ask him not to. They want to keep him around, but as far as I'm concerned, as an on-pitch player, someone who we can start or bring off the bench, I think Coleman's got hardly any use, if any use at all now. I just think he's that far gone.
Who's the leadership in the team now? If he's not in the squad, because that's my issue.
I presume.
Yeah, but he's been here 5 minutes. He hasn't even signed yet. You can't give him the leadership of the club. Put him round.
I'll flip. I'll flip that point.
No,
but I'll flip
exactly,
that point
so
around.
I wouldn't get rid of him.
No, but I'd argue, I'd flip the point around and I'd say he's been the captain here for quite a few years now. How many managers have gone through? If he's this great a leader, why is the squad in such a state?
But he's not buying the
That's
players,
the board's fault, that though. They've got to like.
Yeah.
No, but what standards are getting set? Seamus Coleman's my captain. He's not convinced personally. He's not convincing me to bring me standards up. So I'll just look at him and go, like, who are you? You're throwing goals in the net.
I know he's not been good enough, but that's not his fault.
I
think that's on the board and the people in charge of recruitment who haven't brought in proper leaders and haven't brought in people to succeed them.
For me, being a fella you'd like to have a pint with doesn't make you a leader. And for me, Coleman's he's not the type of leader I want as an Everton captain personally.
You saw in that tunnel access video, he gets pulled out by Lampard. He's one of the best people he's ever met. He's clearly one of the proper characters at the club, and it's the rest of his shithouses who've let us down.
Coleman's been through more managers. It's not directly his fault, but he's been through more managers than anybody. I don't see how he's a solution to anything.
That the managers getting sacked is zero to do with Seamus Coleman. If we had more Seamus Colemans, we wouldn't have had so many managers. It's the other good players. Seamus Coleman's body has gone because of his age, and he had, let's not forget, a massive injury not long ago, well, a few years ago, but that would finish some players' careers, and he's played years after it. His body's gone, mentality-wise and like leadership-wise, we will miss him big time when he's gone, because who takes the captaincy after him?
That's what I mean.
No, but I don't think the captaincy is in any great shape with him at the moment anyway.
I disagree. I think when he goes, it'll be in a dire state.
Good fella. I don't want to run him down completely. I'd have a pint with him, but he's not someone I look at, and I think I love him being the Everton captain. I don't, because for me he's not a winner. He's been through more managers than anybody, and I'm sorry, he's not blameless in that.
He's been through more managers, but that's not to do with him. Like,
he's been part of all those teams. He's not solely responsible for it, but he's got to take his fair share of responsibility.
Because he's
been crap. He's been crap for spells under all those managers. Like
we're not keeping him because we think he's a great player. He hasn't been good enough for 4 or 5 years.
Let's keep him around because Frank's pulling him out and saying what a great leader he is.
Yeah, but that shows that he's a top, professional, top leader and the character in the squad.
To be fair, he loves a soundbite as well, doesn't he, Lampard?
I didn't say he's not a top professional. I'm just saying he's not someone who I look at and I think he's going to drag everyone else up around him.
He's a cut above the rest of the team character-wise, though. I think he just isn't physically.
That's the thing. He's one person trying to lift like 10 characters, most of whom are all shitbags anyway.
I get that, yeah, but for me, he's been part of a lot of Everton's problem. Well, he's been a symptom of a lot of Everton's problems for a while. He's been kept around longer than he should have. Now I know that's a lot of that's the board's problem, but I don't look at Coleman and see this player who's been absolutely fantastic for the club. I think he's been a player who's done well at times and he's been terrible at others. And for me, he's not blameless in escaping the fact that lots of managers have come and gone under him, because he played terrible at times under Coleman, he played terrible at times under Martinez, played terrible at times under other managers. He's not the worst culprit by far. He's not the worst culprit for that. But when you've been through that many managers, I'm sorry, you're not getting off the hook when it was all everyone else's fault and you were blameless and all of that.
Leighton Baines went through half of them managers, though.
No, he didn't. Leighton Baines went through Moyes, Martinez, and still, I'm saying applies to Leighton Baines.
Carlo was manager by the time Baines left.
Yeah. Up until Carlo, Baines was there the whole time. Was it his fault? Was he put to blame as well?
he has to take some of the blame. They all do.
I just think that there's players who are part of the problems and players who are part of the solutions. And all right, Coleman's old now, but I don't think he's ever been part of the problem. You can say he's there as a player, but I just don't see it.
I would agree with Paul on one thing. I think he is a bit in over his head as a captain. I think he is a good character, but I don't think he's a captain.
There's no way near that some of the captains of the past. Definitely not.
The recruitment's been so poor of late that when he does go in a year, there's no obvious choice to replace him as captain unless something happens this season. He's going to leave a much weaker Everton team and squad than the one he came into, and that's the fault of the board because they buy the players. When he came into the team, and I don't idolise this era, but at all. But you look at the players he had around him, like the Baineses, the Jagielkas, Kales, Artetas. There was loads of potential captains there, and if he was to retire tomorrow, who's the potential captain after him? You're looking at possibly Pickford. And Tarkowski, who isn't even here yet because he's been captain somewhere else.
Side.
Yeah.
No, but when Seamus Coleman retires, I don't think Everton are any significantly worse off without him. I'll sum it up. He's not part of the solution, I think. If Everton want to be the club that I want Everton to be, and I think all of us want Everton to be, we're just disagreeing on how we get there. A club that wins and a club everyone takes seriously, I don't think we're going to be that club while Seamus Coleman's around, personally.
I agree, but I don't think that's due to Seamus Coleman. I think there's so many more variables around him.
He's not part of the solution, as far as that.
No, because I wouldn't be playing him on the pitch, but I think as on the bench around the squad, I honestly don't think he's a bad bloke to have around because
I didn't say he's a bad bloke to have round. I'm just saying I don't get this kind of worship for him. I think he's a player who's
good. He's done
well. He's done well at times. He hasn't done well at others. I dislike this whole idea of players with a servant at the club. They're not a servant. They're getting paid astronomical fees. No, I just can't stand that. But the club players are servants. Seamus Coleman's not been an Everton servant. He hasn't done it for nothing.
So would you sell him?
We're not going to sell him because we're not going to. No club's going to come and take him off us, are they, for any money? But I would prefer if Coleman stepped away and retired. Because I think every time he gets on the pitch now, there's too many times where he's on the pitch now and he's just being embarrassed. He's entered Phil Neville territory for me. Where there's just you're at the point now where you're biting your knuckle every time I watch him.
Well, he's not as bad as Phil Neville was them last few months.
He's getting there, mate. He really is getting there. I've been saying he's lost his use as a player 18 months ago. If I was wrong, I definitely don't think I'm wrong now. I just think we're going to need another right back because I'd have Coleman over Kenny. I will stress that. I'd have Coleman over Kenny, but that's like saying, would you rather be burnt to death?
Kenny.
Yeah. No, I think in an ideal world, Patterson's going to be the start and kind of right-sided wing back, full back, but we
think he's going to start Patterson though? I have a feeling Patterson's going to have to wait a few months before.
Better not. What else have we bought him for? If we don't start the season with Patterson, then it was a stupid buy. As far as I can do, because we need to sort of right back now.
I think he'll play Iwobi over Patterson to begin with at right wing back. Seems
all the wonders. On that note, anyway, we'll wrap it up for defenders and we'll move on to the midfield. Also, I'll go through the midfielders and sort of like squad number order, shall I? Because it's hard to work out who plays anywhere these days. We'll start with the sort of base of it. Alan, what's everyone's take on Alan? Because this one's been really divided opinion, I've found amongst fans. Like, some people like him, some people don't. We'll start with you, Owen. What's your take on Alan?
I really like Alan, but he's been playing them last couple of games. He's now 30, 31. I really like him. I think he's a good footballer, and I think he'll go to Lazio, and I think he'll do really well, or back to Napoli. But I can see us getting a few quid for him, and if we're going to make this midfield more robust and more physical, which I want it to be, because I think we need to start winning the ball back and start being more sort of organised in midfield in terms of not have these nice footballers but can't run. Just we need some more athletes in there. I think Alan we'll unfortunately probably have to see the back of him, and I don't want to do that because there's probably 3 or 4 midfielders I'd rather get rid of than Alan, but it's similar to Amin. I think just the finances of everything and his age. I unfortunately think I like him, and I thought he did brilliantly for Carlo when he was here, but I think I would probably be in the situation. I'd love to be in a situation where I didn't have to sell Alan, but I would probably just sell Alan, and I don't feel happy about doing that, but I would probably sell.
Terry?
Yeah, I'd keep. I think Owen's hit it on the head. I think the reality is he's very much like Yerry Mina. He's getting on in age. He's got injury issues, and he's on a big salary. So I think anything comes in for him, the club will take it. But in my world, there's definitely a place in my squad for Alan. Now we've only got 2 good centre midfielders, and he's one of them. I mean, good's about it. But the way I want to play football, Alan's got a place. So if I could have it my way, I'd keep Alan. Yeah.
Paul?
I'd sell. I mean, he's definitely not at the top of the list. There's other midfielders who need to go before him. It's just, as the lads have touched on, it's his age, and I don't think he's athletic enough. I think he's too slow. He's not very big, is he? He's not strong. So even if he's a player who gets caught in possession, he can't exactly muscle another player out of it and win it back. I just think he's a classic case of a player who looks world class in Italy and maybe other leagues where it's very slow, but put him in the Premier League and the pace is probably just a bit too much for him. So I wouldn't say he's been a flop by any means. I think he's come in and he's done largely all right, especially in that first season. He looked really, really good, didn't he? But I think he's a player good player, but he's in the wrong place at the wrong time, really. So I'd let him go back to Italy if we get a decent offer for him. If he was on lower wages, then I'd be a lot more tempted to keep him, but he's one of the highest earners, so I just think it would suit everybody if he goes back to Italy and links back up with Sarri. Yeah, Sarri got the best out of it at Napoli. Sarri will probably get the best out of him again if the Lazio rumours are true. So I'd sell Alan, but I certainly hope we can part friends, shake hands, wish him the best of luck. No hard feelings at all.
I agree with everything you've said there. Basically, I'm on the sell side as well. I think he has done all right, but I think, especially this season without Ancelotti, I think he struggled, to be honest. I think he's actually we've looked quite exposed in the midfield.
Everyone struggled without Ancelotti.
I know, yeah. But our midfield has been overrun. We need more dynamic, athletic, taller as well, I'd say, midfielders.
Yeah,
He is a fighter, Alan, but he's not got the physicality to go with his mentality and his tenacity. We need someone who can combine the two. And need someone, we've got Decore who goes a bit more forward, but you need a big Decore style physique who can sift the base of the midfield and protect it.
Decore with a bit more aggression, yeah.
Or like
more aggression.
Like a 6 foot plus version of Jesse
we could have had Sangare, but the Oracle didn't think he was technical enough, so there we go. Another mistake.
The midfield these days, it's not even as technical as it used to be. The midfield is all about winning duels.
Oh, I know. Technical. It's a lot of old nonsense.
But I'd sell Alan and, like I say, reinvest in someone of that sort of Sangare type mould.
We'll get him, but we'll get someone who can, not Billy Gilmore, for the love of Christ. That's all people want him on. He's just destined to be floating around the bottom half, top end of the championship, lovely football team. They come up and they go back down. That type. He didn't even do well in Norwich, to be fair, but that kind of, you probably end up at Fulham somewhere. He's just not, for me, what in this hypothetical scenario, my Everton midfield would be like. It would be nothing like Billy Gilmore, and unfortunately, I just don't see Alan fitting into it either.
Yeah, like you said, we might not get that Sangare, but what about didn't Leicester sign a fella called Sumare, and he's not really had a kick?
Yeah.
It hasn't worked out for it. Hasn't worked out for him, has it? He played in the cup games, but Rodgers has made his mind up on him pretty quick. And as much as Rodgers is cringe, I didn't really see much of him, but I know Rodgers is very cringe, and we don't like him. Most people don't like him, but I don't think he's silly. I think if he doesn't rate a player, chances are he's not very good. And Rodgers certainly doesn't rate him by the look of it.
Fair enough. But yeah, on Alan, I'd sell him. You want to keep him, Terry? And what would your take, Owen?
I would sell with a heavy heart, to be honest. But if he went on big wages, I'll definitely keep him because I think he's a brilliant footballer. But we're not in an ideal world here, are we? We're in post 16th world where we're gonna have to make a few changes here and there. I don't know if we could balance it somehow where he stayed. I would, but to be honest, though, a lot of these midfielders have to go, so we might be in this situation where we might have to keep them just for sheer numbers, so we can't bring that many in. But I've been on the fence a lot for some of these players because it's the reality of selling them and the sort of desire to sell them are different things. But I'll probably just sell because I just want a different profile of midfielder in there.
For the same reason, I'd do the same. So 3 sells and 1 keep for Alan. On to Abdoulaye Doucouré.
Keep.
Yeah, I think
keep, cut and dry.
He's the only remotely competent midfielder we've got, I think, on Alan, but I think Doucouré probably won't have the sort of big name suitors that Alan's probably got in Italy. I think Doucouré fits the mould of sort of physical midfielder that I think we need more of. But he's not perfect. I think we still should be
looking another one though, Doucouré.
Long term.
Doucouré is a really decent Premier League midfielder. He's really decent. He had a great season, 2021, the COVID season. He was brilliant that season for most of it. He has had to do different roles, but then people rewrote history on that when Benitez has him doing a box-to-box and scored a few goals, but then came back and was rubbish. So really, his consistency from that whole season was really good. But because he's in the midfield where he's doing about 5 people's jobs, people saying that he's rubbish because he has to do literally everything in the midfield because there's nothing in there. There's no defensive discipline. There's no linking up to the attack. There's no winning the ball back. He has to do it all. And so you get these empty heads on Twitter calling him rubbish, when in reality, he's a really good player doing everyone's job. So I
just think he's extremely overstretched because, like I say, I don't think Alan's got the physicality to hold his own in the midfield. I don't think any of the other midfielders are good enough. So I think that he is covering papering a lot of cracks, and as a result, he's shown a bit of cracks in his own game, but that's not his fault. I think he's the best midfielder we've got at the club at the moment.
Yeah, by a mile.
So I keep. Owen, you keep.
Yeah.
Terry, is it a unanimous one, Paul?
Yeah, I'd keep, but I take on board what you're saying, where he's been overstretched last season, but I think there were times when he was really, really poor. I think his form did drop. So I think that's got to be conceded because that game against Bournemouth in the Cup stands out, and he was absolutely hopeless that night. So I definitely keep him, but he can't have another season like the one he's just had, because if he has another season like that, then I wouldn't be necessarily saying keep him next summer. So keep him, but got to get better.
If he goes on the pitch bevies, he still offers more than the other midfielders like Andre Gomez and Tom Davis.
Oh, wait until we get on to Andre.
Get on to that next, Terry, mate.
I was getting rid of him about 4 years ago, and everyone's giving him 5-year deals.
But I do agree with one thing. I think even if Doucouré, I think he is a mainstay in the midfield now, but if the club truly is getting a grip, then it's got to be, there's got to be long-term planning for a replacement to be, for next, maybe for the season after next or the season after that, to really have a successor to Doucouré. Really get a plan in place to try and, replace these moulds in the club, these roles, replace these players a bit sooner. So we don't have, like we said, a Seamus Coleman or a Leighton Baines, like sort of Tim Howard, like being hung out to dry situation.
Playing them until the feet fall off, basically, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely keep Decore. We'll move on to the next one. Cenk Tosun. I know we're on
See you later.
midfielders, but he's done and dusted. There's probably a few
Get
more.
James getting a few tap-ins out the way. Yeah, the hair in the can, he can go and all. See you later.
Yeah, no, don't worry. It's
The fascist.
Matthew Pennington's deal up here, has that come and gone?
he's getting a new
Garvey.
He's getting a new
by
one
the
because
name
he's
from
from.
Joe Kenny these days, isn't he?
He's getting a new one because he's now a bus driver and he knows what way the 86 goes. Yeah, the rest of the midfield then that leaves us with Andre Gomez. I think I think Owen don't even.
Go on, Owen.
No, I've been ready for this for about 3 years.
They just said Owen, yeah.
Honestly, I've never been more angry and fuming at anyone than him at the half-time of that Palace game, because I'm thinking, why are you still here? You should have been gone about 3 years ago. You were that bad at football. He's a joke. He's a waste of space. He can't defend. He's rubbish on the ball. He's never offered anything in the final third. He's just useless. He is honestly one of the worst midfielders I've ever seen play for Everton. People, when he has these 10-minute cameos once a season, when he become on in a three-man midfield and he's playing next to two decent midfielders, people just love to give him a bit of praise. But Decore has a bad game, or everyone's onto it. It's just an absolute joke, you know. And Andre Gomez, honestly, if he hasn't already cleared out his look, he better start, because he's terrible. Someone surely has to take him in like the Conference League. So
The Toffee
Conference
Blues.
League's got to be able to get about the pitch.
The Toffee Blues' own Jordan Carroll got it right on that Palace game with him. He said Alex Nyarko was going to sprint on the pitch in a minute and offer to swap shirts with Andre Gomez. He's that bad.
We'll just remind the listeners that someone in this blocked me for saying Andre Gomez was a dreadful footballer.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, before I knew Owen and spoke to Owen, I saw him on Twitter bringing the name of Andre Gomez into disrepute, and I was on the laughing gas about Gomez, like most of the fan base was at the time, and I thought, oh, this fella hasn't got a clue. I can't be arsed with him. Blocked him. I think that's one of my worst howlers ever. Like,
you've got to get up pretty early to get past me and Andre Gomez, and honestly, never filled me for a minute.
It's safe to say I was on the wrong side of history on that one.
So, Gomez, sell.
Gone. Yeah, sell.
I know we need midfielders and we should keep a few of them, but I think he's one of the ones that definitely like to, send down the garbage chute.
Over him, honestly.
He's one of the reasons we need midfielders. We bought a £20 million midfielder and he's shite. Like, saw a tweet the other day. In one summer, we brought in Delph, Gomez and Gbamin. Fucking hell.
And
the article.
On that note, Gbamin, keep, sell, loan. It's obviously on loan now.
I've
had enough of him as well.
I'll let Paul take the Gbamin one.
You don't know. I mean, he went and kept himself fit in Russia, didn't he? But what kind of league is that? Neville Southall could play in that league now.
He was knocking about strip clubs, wasn't he? That's what I've heard. It's like
that and the fact that he's got generally got done for drink driving as well. I think his attitude for the first time has been called into question now. I think it was Greg O'Keefe who wrote the piece in the Athletic the other week, didn't he? Saying kind of the perception of him was out in Russia. I don't know where Greg O'Keefe gets this information from. I don't know if he's got a mate out there or what, but he wrote that there was kind of a perception about Gbamin that he was someone who kind of wasn't taking his loan spell seriously enough. He was going out and enjoying the nightlife a little bit too much when he was there, purely to just get his head down, get fit, and prove that he's still capable of playing 90 minutes on a football pitch.
That's not just Russian people's attitudes towards people of colour.
Maybe
that's Graham Souness's attitude towards people of colour.
Possibly,
but no, it's one of them. Gbamin, the horse has long since bolted, hasn't it? The fans don't care about him. It seems like no one at the club cares about him anymore. I know it's a new coaching team's come in. Benitez, for all the criticism he gets, Benitez had no time for him. Carlo didn't really use him as much as he could have because he was fit towards the end of Carlo's. Well, I know he got injured again in the final few months of Carlo's season, but he was fit for a little while, and Carlo didn't really bring him off the bench other than maybe once, I think, at home.
He's not very good.
Yeah, against Palace, and then he cost us the win.
Maybe that's a bit harsh, but he's every time he's featured for Everton, I've just seen nothing that suggests that he was this player we were being led to believe we were signing from Mainz. Now, a lot of that's probably down to the horrific injuries he's got, but I'm sorry, we're not a charity, are we? Do you know what I mean? If you want to get your career going, then
for me, a lot of these players, it's not just a case of getting rid of them because they're not very good. It's a case of getting a bit of closure, I think, from this year of failure.
Yeah. Just let everyone move on. And for Andre Gomez, I didn't touch on him.
Gomez, yeah.
Do you know, with Gomez, mate, honest to God, just put him in a wooden crate, put him on a P&O, and just send it to the other side of the world. Do you know, like what they do to Madagascar, the animals in Madagascar? And they fall out, and the crate falls in the water, and they wash up on an island. That can happen to Andre Gomez for just honest to God, just get him far away from just Great Britain. Never mind, like Merseyside, just send him away. Don't care where. And Gbamin, just first team that comes in and offers us anything for him, just let him go.
Yeah, same. Obviously, Andre Gomez, you spoke about like the Arco situation at half time. He got subbed off for Dele Alli, and Dele Alli's done very little since he come in, but he has a good second half in that game. What's the situation with him? Do you keep him? It's one of the most debatable ones, because what do you do with Dele Alli?
Sell.
Owen?
Bye.
Paul?
Sell.
Yeah. I reckon flog him, because...
Never should have signed him.
No.
Also, we're still short of the quota for actually paying any money for him, I think. So,
Daniel Levy, mate. Daniel Levy wouldn't give a man who'd walked through the Sahara Desert a glass of water. The fact that he was willing to let us have Dele Alli, basically have him for free for the first 20 games of his Everton Premier League games of his Everton career. So basically, the first 6-7 months of his Everton career, we got him in January, and it's going to be like August, September before he goes past that 20 mark. So that 20 game thing, isn't it? So
he's only played about 11, 12.
11, 12. So yeah, it's going to be, if he plays from the start of next season, it's going to be at least September, October. So basically, we'll have gone 9 months without paying anything for Dele Alli. And the fact that Daniel Levy let us have that deal tells us everything we need to know about what Tottenham thought of Dele Alli. There's a talented player in there, but he doesn't want it enough anymore. And if he did want it enough, I think Frank would have used him. And Frank seems very keen on him when he first got here. I think Frank's had a look at him in training, and it's a clear case of buyer's remorse. So I think just let him go.
Personally, if we could get, like, and he is a talented player, if we could get about 5 million for him and just turn a profit,
I'd loan him out as long as they take his wages.
I don't think any other Premier League club would be soft enough to take him. I mean, honestly, if you think that Everton's board and Tottenham's board went to a negotiation and Everton got the better of Tottenham, then I've got a bridge to sell you. We've brought him in. I'd try and get him out the door before we have to pay any money for him, because quality player, but he fails the knobhead test. He doesn't want to. He clearly, if you can't get yourself up for Mourinho or Conte, you are not going to become an hard-working player for Frank Lampard. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think we all agree then sell. I think even if we get like a couple of million, 2-3 million, and just turn a minor profit on it.
I wouldn't even ask for that personally. If someone's willing to come in and just pay his wages, I'd let him go for that, because we get his wages off the books, and it means we don't have to pay that any money to Tottenham, doesn't it? At least for another year. I'd let them have him for nothing as long as they're willing to take up most, if not all, his wages.
People be wanting to keep him though, because he had a good second half against Palace, and Everton fans are very sentimental. So, but I would get rid of very quickly, because I can just see how this is going to go. And we're going to end up paying loads of money for someone who hardly ever plays, and you might get one good game in 3 months. So yeah, I'll get rid of very quickly, but I can definitely see a situation where he's here next season.
Final centre mid, Tom Davis, obviously barely had a bad injury this season, so hasn't really featured much until near the end. And then, so what would you do with Tom Davis? It's an interesting one, but what would you do, Owen?
I'd keep, because we've got rid of half of them, so we've got to keep someone. And I feel like he was quite a bit away from what happened last season. And unless we're going to bring 8 midfielders in, We've got to keep some around, and I think when he was playing just in front of the back four the season before, he did all right. He's not amazing. He's like your fourth or fifth choice, but you've got to have a fourth and fifth choice, and it'll probably be him. He was just about to stay for me. I don't see. The
other thing for me that tells me to keep Tom Davis is that his salary is a lot lower than Andre Gomez and Dele Alli.
He's not amazing, don't get me wrong. If he'd left, I wouldn't be bothered, but I just think practically, I think he can come in every now and then and do okay. I wouldn't get rid of him. I know it'd probably do a bit of what I was saying about Kenny, but I think he's got a bit more going for him than that. And I don't know, he can't be like a starter, but he can just be someone who's just there, isn't he? But I wouldn't get rid.
Paul?
Yeah, I'd keep. He seemed to finally have found his position in a midfield, didn't he, under Ancelotti, which was a sitting player who drops deep and takes it off the back four, and you just keep his job simple, and he can just kind of get his head down and get on with it in games, and not be at the centre of kind of the action sort of thing. So
becoming a bit of a theme. There's a lot of players whose only good form came under Carlo Ancelotti. It's like he knew what he was doing.
Because they had to keep it simple. They had to sit deep and they had to just be pragmatic, didn't he? But I don't read anything into last season from Tom Davis. He was injured for the vast majority of it. He didn't play much under Benitez, and when he did, it was kind of off the bench. So for me, I just think last season is just a total write-off for Tom Davis. I think you've just got to pretend that Tom Davis is still that player who he had under Carlo Ancelotti. And I was liking the look of that player after not rating Tom Davis for a long time. I thought we finally found a way to get a use out of him, and hopefully Frank can come in this next season, can keep using him in that manner. And the fact that he knows he's probably the best England midfielder of his generation, let him have a look at Tom, and if he can carry on doing with Tom what Carlo was, then I think Davis will have his uses over the course of the season. But he's not a starter, but I'd keep him.
More some of the alternatives we just mentioned. What are you, Terry?
Yeah, the same as what the lads think. I think I see no value in getting rid of Tom Davis. I think he's finally nailed down what type of midfielder he is. He's obviously not on a massive wage, so he's not like a problem for the club like the likes of Gomez and people like that are. I think if we had him available for the back end of the season, I think we would have been safer a lot earlier because we wouldn't have been relying on Delph, who's ends up when he wants. So yeah, valuable player to have in the squad, good character. He's what people think John Joe Kenny is. He's the local player on a low wage who can actually do a job for the squad.
He can't do a job.
But he actually is good enough to do a job. You play him as a number 6. He's a competent player and he can move the ball around, and he's got a bit of, it doesn't look like it because he's so chill off the pitch, but he's got a little bit of needle. He'll get stuck into a battle for the club. Not to say he's like a brute or like he runs around smashing players, but I mean, like, he doesn't go wide and he wants to play, wants the ball even when we're not playing well, wins fouls, etc. I'd be keeping Tom Davis, and hopefully he gets things going again for himself after that bad injury.
Yeah, so it's a unanimous keep there. Andros Townsend, obviously missed a lot at the end of the season with the injury, and we'll probably miss a fair bit of it anyway. I don't think we'll be able to sell him regardless because of the injury. He won't be going anywhere. He's only got another year left on his contract anyway, hasn't he? So they'll probably just keep him around for a season and then he'll be gone. Terry will be relieved.
I was dead set against bringing Tom Townsend in personally. I remember doing a video. I think it might have been with you, James, would have said, I just don't see the point in us doing that. Townsend, he scored for me the goal of the season for any club, the goal against Burnley. I didn't see a better goal all year, and it was the goal that put us in the lead, I think, in that game. So it was a vital one. So he came in and played his part. There's no ill will towards him, but it's just he's just gone the way of Balassi, sadly, hasn't it? Circumstances went against him, and there's just no way back. You don't see any way back for him at that age. There's nothing he can come back and do in the back end of next season, which is probably the earliest we're going to get him back. That would make me want to give him a new deal, surely. Unless he comes back and he's the man of the match for the remaining games of the season, then he shouldn't be getting a new deal and probably chance
No,
of
he's
that. So
31, 32 now, isn't he? So, 33.
No, America beckons to Townsend, and he's one of those players. I'm glad to see the back of him because it'll mean just the club spending less money on a player who's not going to really contribute to anything. But I wish him well. He did better than I thought he was going to do. I'll always be grateful to him for that smashing Burnley goal he put in because that's one of the best goals I've seen in years.
Like you mentioned, that in the end has kept us up, that goal. But,
probably, yeah. When you look, it was
look at
3
the way
points.
The table panned out. So
yeah, it was 3 points we desperately needed, wasn't it? And that was a game that we looked like we were going to lose until he fired that Funza bastard in, wasn't it? So, yeah, nothing against Townsend, but no, he's
Townsend's going to be
no future for him.
It's just he'll probably play a few games towards the end of next season, and then he'll probably go.
Shall I go, or do you want to get yours in first, though, or shall I cut loose?
Townsend.
Yeah.
I don't think he did badly, but it wouldn't be very honourable just to get rid of him while I've got a big injury, would it? No, he did all right. He's very one-dimensional. He was a bit overrated at times when he was doing well, but people do tend to go over the top of as we've already discovered. He was all right. I wish him well, but when this contract is up, I wouldn't be looking to renew it because if he wasn't injured, I'd probably be looking to get rid, to be honest, because I don't think he did. He's worth keeping, but good luck to him if he recovers and he has a good final days of his career somewhere. I like him.
Yeah, I think it will be a case of he'll be one more season and then he'll be gone. Terry, to your relief, I presume.
Yeah, he's shite. He's been shite his whole career, mate. He was part of Benitez's mission to take Everton back to 1992 inside 6 months. Get rid of the James Rodriguez's, get rid of the Luca Deans and bring in absolute shite hawks like Townsend. He has 3 good games a year and 1 banger a season. And that's exactly what he did here. 3 good games at the start.
That's harsh. He was better than that. He had a few good games.
Okay. Well, am I wrong? How am I wrong?
Because he did better than that. I'm sure he's good.
When did
he played better? He didn't have it. He wasn't shite in every game except 3.
I disagree. I think he was. I think before he got the injury, people had started to see what I'm talking about. And then he got injured, and now obviously, when
he scored 2 bangers, I'll have against Hull in the cup. So you're all right. That's where you're wrong.
Yeah, I'll miss that parade for the cup we won. Absolute waste of space. Benitez's one-man mission to take Everton back to the dark ages so we can have a good laugh about it with his after-dinner speeches with the Reds that he's probably back on doing now. Townsend's shite, mate. He's been shite his whole career. I wish him the best in his future career on TalkSport with Jamie O'Hara. He's fucking crap. Get rid of him.
So Terry's definitely on the keep side then.
Yeah, he's been, mate. I'm sure he's a great professional, but he's crap. He was let go by Crystal Palace. And says it all.
He was done by the time he was finished there. He was really poor that last season at Palace. And
then we signed him because Benitez thought I'd rather have him than James Rodriguez.
Yeah, but no one thought that was a good idea. But when he came, he didn't do that badly.
Oh, did they not? I had people in my mentions saying it was at least he'll play. And James only plays for Carlo, and Carlo just says let's just play to the players. And Benitez has got a plan now. People were on the laughing. Absolute.
Right.
I've never been more smug to be vindicated on that signing. He's absolutely crap, and he did exactly what I said he was going to do. He did 1 banger and have 3 or 4 good games in a whole season. That's what he done.
Well, as we've already said there, I think
there's a point to be made as well. Even if he didn't get that injury that he's got, can he play wing back? I don't think so. Did he do it once in the Boreham Cup games? Did Frank start him there?
No, he played them there against Newcastle, and that was honestly one of the worst individual performances I've ever seen in my life. When he played wing back.
Even if he wasn't the age he was and having the injury he's got, he's not going to fit into Frank's plans.
Your previous statement to us,
yeah. He's not going to fit. Yeah, he's not going to fit into Frank's plans, even if he wasn't out injured. He's not going to be able to play wing back. He's not going to be able to be. He can't play in the centrally either. Really, there's just yeah, there's no place for him.
I just hope he doesn't get the John Joe Kenny treatment when he comes back from the injury and gets an extension for his contract, because he's got a pulse and he can play in a couple of positions. The lad's shite. He's finished.
Done and dusted,
in order to be useful, he'd have to have a comeback better than his own hairline's had, which is just remarkable.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that on him anyway. I think he'll be gone this time next year anyway. And from Andos Sounds, and we'll move on to obviously the other some signing in midfield. We had Damari Gray as well, who really started the season brightly and sort of became a lot more inconsistent as it went on. This is an interesting one because he's obviously came in at 25 for a very low price and done okay. Start with you, Owen. What would you do with Damari Gray?
Keep, but honestly, if he went, I wouldn't be too bothered because he had a great. He's like Jekyll and Hyde, isn't he? He was unbelievable for the first half of the season, but I think the second half of the season he was terrible at times, like really poor. And which one he is, he's one to probably judge next season to see which one emerges. But I was really unconvinced by him in the second half of the season, but he was really, really good the first half of the season. So I don't really know where I'm at with him, but it'd be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, Paul, Terry, your takes?
Keep for me, but he's not a player again who I want to see around long term. His release clause was like what 1.5 million. That's what we got him for. I mean, if we're going to sell him this summer, then I don't think we're going to get offered, anything above 10 million really. Whereas if we keep him around for next year and he has another spell of form where he has 2-3 months where he looks really, really good, then the chances are we could sell him next summer and get quite a bit up from what we get this season. If he's back in the Premier League for 2 years and he's good for a period of time in both those seasons, then maybe someone will come in and do what Everton typically do and pay over the odds for him, thinking that he can come into their team and suddenly find some consistency. So I'd keep this season, but I would definitely sort of make plans for replacing him in that position, because I'd want to ideally move him on if in the next summer and get someone who's better than him. I don't think we're going to be able to do that this year. So keep, but not long term.
Terry?
Yeah, I'd keep. Like Owen said, if you got an offer for him, he wouldn't be like, oh no, he's on the do not even entertain list. But for the money we spent on him, you're always going to be up on your investment. Like it's risk free. Player like that, like good age, a lot of pace. Yeah, he does blow out and cold, but for that much money, he's worth having around the squad. And if you build up the squad to the point where you've got a really good team and he can't get in and he's just on the bench, even then he's not like a Yerry Mina or an Andre Gomez or an Allen where he's eating a massive hole in your finances. I'd be happy to keep him and use him. Use them sometimes and hope that you get the good version of him more than you get the bad. But I certainly wouldn't be building my team around him and hoping for him to be one of the key goal creators. But he's definitely someone who I'd have as part of the makeup, part of the mix for forward players. I just wouldn't be, betting the whole farm on him. But again, well worth having in the squad for the price we paid and for the financial outlay. He's always going to be more valuable to you than his price suggests, because he contributes, he does something, he scores some goals, he creates some assists, he causes some havoc with his pace. Benitez got the best out of him by playing him behind the striker and letting him basically run with that free role. There'll be probably times where he gets played like that again, with injuries and whatnot. But yeah, I'd keep him. I don't see any upside in selling him unless we were to get like a really good offer for him.
Which I don't think we'll get. I think we're all pretty much unanimous on this, is that we'll keep him around. He can do a job. He's not special. Keep him around the squad for a couple of years and probably move him on when hopefully by the time he leaves, the club's in a much better state than it is now.
Hypothetically, boys, if the transfer window opens on Friday, doesn't it? If we got offered 10 million for him on Friday, who would take that 10 million?
Yeah, because it's 10 times practically, or like, just under 10 times profits. So I'd take that, but I wouldn't take any less, put it that way.
Yeah, I'd try and barter that to about 12, 13, and then I'd run with that, because that's enough to get a replacement in of a similar caliber, maybe even a younger version of him.
Personally, I'd gamble. Going back to what I said before, I wouldn't. I'd gamble and keep him around for a year, and hopefully hope he does something over next season, even if it's just a fleeting spell. That will make clubs end up coming back for him next summer and spending close to 20. So if you'd offered me 10 million, I'd say no, because I think possibly if we kept him around a bit longer, we could maybe get more for him in the future.
The thing you've got with Damari Gray is, and why you'd probably keep him, is A, because you didn't spend too much, and B, he is a match winner. He does come up with moments in games where he can win you the game. He can be drawing 1-1 at 60 minutes, and he can score a goal and assist a goal. And that's it, you've won the game. That's the kind of player he is, but how many of them to get out of him a season? Not that many.
Maybe 3 if you're lucky.
Yeah, he's one you give another chance to, but honestly, from about February, January onwards, when Benitez left and Lampard came in, I don't know what happened, but he just suddenly become really poor.
But yeah, I think Damari Gray, we're all on the same page. I think it's a case of keep, but eventually look to replace him.
Yeah, if the offer's good enough, then he'll go. Yeah.
On to the next one. I think this will be the most unanimous keep of the lot. Anthony Gordon. I don't think anyone's got anything to say against.
Come on a long way. Still a ways to go. He's, people overrate him because they want him to be good because he's young Everton, academy product, and he seemed to be at times the only one who really was fighting for the club. I know that wasn't going to be the case, but visually it looked like he was. So yeah, it's a staunch keep from me, and hope he can kick on because there's still parts of his game he needs to improve on, but certainly nowhere near sell or loan for me.
Not at all. I presume that's a similar take from everybody there.
Yeah, it's a keep from me. But in an ideal world, he wouldn't be a first choice player. I think he's a player who we start in the cups and maybe bring off the bench and start over the winter periods when the games are coming thick and fast. He's really coming on, isn't he? But I just think there were times last season when you could tell he just didn't quite have 90 minutes in his legs, and there were games where he was trying hard and he had the right attitude, but just he was making the wrong choices now and then, and just a lot of attacks were breaking down with him. So definitely keep, but I wouldn't shoehorn him into the team.
I'm where Paul's at.
Yeah, I think we're all in a similar position there. We'll definitely keep him around the squad. Alex Iwobi, major improvement this season. Obviously someone Frank Lampard likes. What do you guys make of him? Owen?
Yeah, I'll keep. I mean, he seems to have a role in the squad. He's played effectively at times since Lampard come in. I don't think he played that much under Benitez, but he had a good little flurry the first 2 months when he played with Benitez as well. I can remember Southampton came on and he did all right the first game. So he has a pretty decent season. He is a decent player. He's not the money we pay for him, and I'm not sure he ever will be, but in the summer we've sold a lot of players tonight on here. I just think with his versatility, he can play midfield off the wings, wing back. I don't see many people queuing up for him either, because there's kind of a reputation about him now that he's a flop, and no one particularly wants him from the outside. So I'll keep him. I don't expect there to be any chance he'll end up anywhere other than Everton come near the end of the window.
Terry?
I'd sell him. I mean, I'm not going to be upset if we don't sell him. He's carved out a niche at Everton now and he's improved. But for me, this was the ideal scenario that he starts to establish himself, put a run of performances together, and then potentially someone will look at him and go, we should sign him. And then I don't think he's long-term a good fit for Everton or where I want Everton to go. But he's certainly not one of the problems at the club. He's got a good attitude. He works hard. He's one of the few players who progresses the ball, which is why he's been playing right wing back. I think they've made the decision now that higher up the pitch in a front three, where he was signed for, he doesn't really affect the game as much. But if he's deeper in the team, he moves the team up the pitch. And if we were to sell him, I'd want that replacing with better midfielders. But I think in this, I keep saying, in this hypothetical perfect world scenario, I'd hope that someone had seen enough from him now where he got to actually, we'll take in like a Palace or someone like that, another London club. And then we go out and we get a player who can progress the ball from centre midfield, and we just play Patterson right wing back. So it's a sell for me, although I wouldn't, have a wobbler if he wasn't sold.
Yeah, same. Your take, Paul? You keep him?
I'd keep him, but how long has he got left on his contract? Is he got 2 years left now? He's just done. Yeah, that was his third season, that wasn't it? So yeah. I'd keep him, but I wouldn't offer him a new deal. I think he's got to keep his form going that he showed last season under Frank. He's got to take that forward into next season, because if he just drops off again at some point, and you wouldn't put it past him, would you? Then he just goes right back in the get rid column, doesn't he? So I would keep him hungry. I'd keep him and make him still fight for his long-term future at the club. I'd keep him this summer, but I would not offer him a new deal, and we'll see where we're at next summer. And if he hasn't carried on what he's been showing in the last few months, then he goes into the get rid column. If he carries on what he was doing under Frank all through next season, or at least through most of it, then there's definitely an argument to give him a new deal. But if we give him a new deal in the next 6 months, I won't be happy, because I don't think he's it. Just what he did, you can't forget the first 2.5 years he was here, he was pretty much useless. Six months of good form doesn't make up for that. So yeah, he's got to do a lot more before I definitely want to keep him around for the long-term future. I'm not fully convinced by him yet.
I think I'm looking at Iwobi now in the same sort of position. Obviously, it's a bit more risk of a loss because he's much more expensive. But similar to Damari Gray, I think where he's a good player to have around the team. He is one of the better players, and like Terry says, he's a good ball carrier. What I like about him is that he's one of the few players in this team who's big and strong and physical and pretty quick, but can also control the football, which is, we don't have many of those in this team.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's his decision making or his concentration that lets him down. Because even last season, there were games where I just wanted to. When I was watching on the stream, I wanted to just throw my laptop out the window. Like the West Ham game, he was particularly really bad in that. He was responsible for them getting the second goal. So he's done well to turn it round. He's gone from get rid of him by any means necessary to, okay, he's probably earned a reprieve for now, but he's still got a lot of convincing to do before I'm convinced that he's a player I want at Everton long term. Like Terry said, Terry's not doesn't want to be a long term. I'm at the point where I could still go either way on him.
The thing with a lot of these players is that I wouldn't be particularly gutted or lose any sleep if anyone we've mentioned so far does leave, because I'm looking at it practically and thinking it's money that we can spend to get someone better, and I'm not particularly over the top on any of them, because there's Gomez's and Kenny's I'd love to just get rid of because they've been awful. But no one, Pickford maybe, because but even he'd been poor previously. So I think that a lot of these players are just, the only one definitely want to keep is Tarkowski because he's just come, but because I'm a fan of his. But the rest of them, Mikalenko, yeah, as well. But everyone else, I think they've got to fight for what goodwill they've been given by allowed to stay after how terrible most of them have been most of the season.
Yeah, I think for me, it is again similar to the Damari Gray. It's keep up, maybe not long term. Hopefully, stock on the rise and try and recoup the money. I don't think we'll ever turn a profit on him, but if we could sell for like a 20 million, like Damari Gray, then that's good business, I think. Yeah.
Who else has still got to go through? Yeah. Is it the out-and-out strikers now?
Yeah, just the strikers now. So obviously we'll go between these two, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. odds are one of them's probably going to go.
I think a better question to be asked is, if you had to get rid of one of them, who would you get rid
That's
of?
actually what I was going to ask. Owen, so
Reason.
if you guys, Owen, we'll go with you first. If you had to pick one to go, who would go?
Dom, probably. This ideal hypothetical universe, would probably be Dom. Richarlison just seems a lot happier and a lot closer to the fans, to the team. Probably a bit of a better player. Offers a bit more. I really like Dom. Like, be known that I do really like him, and I want him to stay. I want both of them to stay. But if one had to go and I had to choose, I'd probably choose Dom to go somewhere else and have a bit of a fresh start for him, because he's had a tough season for him, and that's was for everyone. But he's obviously struggled a lot with it. And if I had to get rid of one, it'd be him. But it's not necessarily because I want to get rid of him. It's more to do with the fact that we have to get rid of one, probably. And I just think Richarlison's got something at the moment with the fans, and he's a bit of a hero for a lot of people. I think he could. Richarlison's our best player, so we've already lost Luca Dean and Hammers in the last year. We'll lose Richarlison as well. That's probably just about it. But I think I really want to keep Dom, but if we had to, it would be him.
Yeah. Terry?
Yeah, more or less the same as Owen. I'd love to keep the two of them, but if it's one of them's going to go, then Calvert-Lewin makes the most sense. I love Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think he's a great lad, and I think he's a really good player. But on top of what Owen said, I also don't think Everton now are suitable for a player like him. Like when we had, Luca Dean on one side and James Rodriguez on the other, and Gylfi Sigurdsson even in the middle, who were all, expert ball delivery players, that Calvert-Lewin thrived. He's a 6-yard box, poacher. He's a finisher. He's what's it called? He just doesn't suit the players we've got now. We don't play to his strengths. So one, that it make the most sense from a playing side of things. So, we get a lot more out of Richarlison for the way we play and the way ideally I'd like us to play, like, more combative, more like, aggressive football. And also in a business sense, Calvert-Lewin, he came in for 1.5 million or 1 million, I think it was even. So to sell him for a big fee, it'd look fantastic on the books for the FFP or profit and loss regulations, which we're struggling with. You'd get more money for him than you will Richarlison, just because he's English. There's not a lot of players like Calvert-Lewin around, that sort of orthodox number 9. And he's more marketable, let's have it right. He's becoming a star in his own right. So if they didn't have Ronaldo, I could see Manchester United being interested in him and being a good fit there. Arsenal the same. I think his story at Everton now of going from a kid, a skinny midfielder, to an established England player, before he got the injury. I think it's come to a natural sort of point now with Calvert-Lewin and the club where a move would suit all parties. We'd get good money for him and can reinvest in the rest of the squad, and he'll get a fresh start probably in London.
Your take, Paul?
Calvert-Lewin, but that's the one I'd sell, but more for the reason that I just think he's damaged goods after an injury that he's had last season. A lot of players, especially strikers, who rely on their agility and their athleticism, a lot of them don't come back from injuries like that. They're never fully the same. They have mental blocks. Michael Owen's probably the ultimate example of that, where he's talked about it openly, hasn't he? Where after he tore his hamstring and he got all these injuries in his muscles, he physically, mentally, he wanted to do it, but physically, he was trying to will himself to do it, but mentally, he just wouldn't allow, his mind just wouldn't allow him to. Every time he went to go make a sprint, he would just freeze, type thing. We don't know about Calvert-Lewin. I don't think he played enough games fully fit for us to really see whether or not he's 100% the player he was before the injury, but I wouldn't take the chance. And there's a lot to be said for keeping Calvert-Lewin over Richarlison, because I think if they both started 35 games, I think the smart money would be on Calvert-Lewin getting more goals in that period. But I just think the time to cash in is now. I think he's got a bad injury. There's a very good chance he's never going to be the same player, because he was back in the Everton team for a good 3-4 months before after his injury, and he didn't score, and he didn't look, and he was just not in games at all. I'll never forget that Burnley game. He wasn't even the Calvert-Lewin that he used to be, where even when he wasn't scoring or getting on the end of the chances, he was still just running and working his balls off. He wasn't even doing that anymore. He was like a waste of a shirt a lot of the time, and I don't think that's because he had just down tools or anything like some people think. I just think he just didn't have it mentally to do what was required. He was too worried about tweaking an injury again. So I'd cash in on him. I think there's a player there who is never quite going to get back to what he was. That's why my gut instinct is. Could be wrong, and I might really regret. We might end up really regretting selling him if he goes and he's banging 20+ goals in for the team he goes to. But for me, I don't want to take the chance on him. I'd rather just take the money.
Yeah, I think that's a unanimous one. I think we'd all rather keep Richarlison if we had our way then.
Yeah, all day. Like, I wouldn't blame him for going elsewhere, but if I could, I'd keep Richie. He's just proper Everton. He's old school Everton. He's a throwback, and he only scores important goals, and he's got a connection with the fan base. And I honestly, if we could, I'd give him a new deal. I'd reflect his status at the club. I'd give him a improved terms, longer deal, and I'd even put clauses in it, which I'm sure he'd want, where if top clubs come in for him, which they might do in the future, that he can go. But in terms of the right here, right now, I think he's far more important to Everton than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's best sort of value to the club would be his sale fee, whereas Richarlison, his best value is on the pitch.
Good point, that. Yeah. And on that note, it brings us to our last first team player, Salomon Rondon, guys.
Yeah, goodbye.
Owen?
Yeah. Good. Thanks, but no thanks.
Keep locked in his house, bolt the doors down, bolt the windows down. Don't ever let him out. Honestly, just give him the nasty treatment.
I would sell him.
No, mate, I'd go that far after that red card he got against not Crystal Palace, Brentford. No, I'm sorry.
What about Moise Keane? Is he back this summer?
No, he's gone. No point talking.
He's gone. Buying it, so he's definitely gone. In fairness, that's
never seen. Yeah, the talk that Atletico were going to buy him off Juventus now.
Yeah, all right. I believe that when I see it.
Well, Fabrizio says it, and Fabrizio's normally reliable, but we've seen the last of Moise Keane in Everton shirt, so he doesn't think about.
It's an obligation to buy him, so we're actually guaranteed like 27 million or something off him, which is good business, really. I think that's pretty much the same as what we paid for him, wasn't it?
Near enough.
I don't know. We're conning to pay that, honestly.
Juventus, yeah.
I think Juventus as bad as me at times.
Juventus are probably just going to buy him and then sell him to cut losses because they're tied into it because of the deal they made with us. But no point talking about him. As for Rondon, the footballing ability of Oumar Niasse, but the physical condition of Terry McAllister,
don't do yourself down, mate.
He's a big fat waste of space. He was a big fat waste of space when we signed him. He was in China for a reason. I told everyone, and half of Twitter didn't want to know. He's crap. Get rid of him.
Oh, he's more than crap, mate. Has anyone seen Hot Fuzz? The fella who goes to Europe. It's the same actor who plays the Hounds in Game of Thrones. That's what Salomon Rondon is. He should be working in a supermarket cleaning up babies sick. He's not even a footballer. And I'm sorry, I am willing to get personal with him now after what he did in that Brentford game when he came on, and he had the lip to run off applauding the fans as well. It's like, mate, take your shirt off, go and get your stuff out the changing room, drive away from the ground, never show your face round here again. He's a disgrace, and it's embarrassing that he's actually at this club.
Oh yeah, Owen.
Yeah, I'll get rid of him.
Yeah, I think.
To be honest, if we're short on strikers, we should bring the best striker of all time, Josh King, back after all these brilliant substitute appearances he never got the other year. I mean, he did so well at Watford, only scored past us, I think, didn't he? Yeah, never got that joker either.
And Man United. So any club he played for previously, he slotted one past, but other than that, he was crap.
Fair reflection of him.
We are we are definitely going to need another striker, even if we manage to keep Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, I think, because we're going to need Richarlison. For me, you don't get the best out of him as a centre forwards. Maybe not everyone agrees, but I want to see like an out-and-out striker as like a backup to Calvert-Lewin if he stays, or if he goes, we're going to need another out-and-out striker. I'm sorry, there's no place for Solomon Rondon.
Is this a bit of a hot take from me? But I know he was terrible at Burnley, but would you take Weghorst as a backup?
Oh no, I wouldn't take him. I'll take
He
him
did well in
and drop
Germany.
him off the M6 and leave
I was
him
a
there.
fan of him when in Germany. I think he did well for Wolfsburg, and I kind of, in the group chat we had a couple of weeks before the season ended, I said, apparently he's got a buyout clause. I said, would anyone take a chance on him? But I agreed with what everyone came back with. Said no, mate. He's too slow. He's too immobile.
There's one word for Weghorst, and that's just gobshite. See you later.
James loves him. He's always liked him.
I liked him for what I liked. His goal. He looked decent at Wolfsburg. He used to get a healthy goal return at Wolfsburg, but whether that was just because he was in a team that was completely built around him, or whether it was because a lot of teams in that league are just utter rubbish and it's slower. He didn't look anything good at Burnley, did he? If Burnley had bought a better
ball, apparently doesn't like holding it up, doesn't like running the channels, doesn't like doing much. So
if Burnley spent the money on a different striker, then there's a very good chance they'd have stayed up.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
He said that he's not playing in the Championship after scoring like one or two goals in the Premier League. Came in
goals you would have scored as well. Rondon would have scored the goals he scored.
Yeah. Honestly, came in, stank the place out, and then said, "I'm not playing in the Championship. Who do you think I am?" I know, might be too good for you, mate.
I don't. He briefed the media. Don't like heading the ball. Don't like holding the ball up. I don't like doing this. Well, see you later.
I don't think he'll be getting back in the Holland team anytime soon, because he was an established Holland international. He went to the Euros, didn't he? And as I said, his goal return was really healthy in Germany, but he's just come here and been totally exposed by the look of it. So I think he's probably, if he's not going to play in the Championship, I think the best he can hope for is some club in a nonsense league, like maybe if he goes to Greece or something, or he goes back to Holland and plays somewhere there. That's the best he can hope for. But I think his days of playing in the Holland national team are long gone now.
Yeah. We'll finish up there anyway. We'll finish with Rondon. Unanimous. Get in the bin.
Yeah. Get in the sea.
Nice and easy way to wrap up that, wasn't it?
Get in the fairness.
Hopefully calling time on Rondon's Premier League career as well. So there you have it, guys. That's the keep selling loan show done and dusted. A nice epic marathon there of Everton squad discussions, bringing back a lot of the trauma of this season as well. So joy have all enjoyed that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know your opinions on all the squad members as well. Who you keep and who you get rid of. Drop us a comment. Give us a like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the store in the description as well of this video. Until next time, guys, thanks for tuning in on the Toffee Blues.